Welcome back to the Detroit is Different podcast studios. And 2025 brings a lot to the table when it comes to a lot of things in politics. So much just happened from the past federal election, which a lot of people have so much more attention on politics, and a lot of other people have heightened their apathy. Either way, the discussions about how campaigning, political engagement has heightened so much. So with that, one of the minds that's like my brother in the crew, meaning like we roll together, usually more so in the space of talking sports, a lot of boxing, basketball, things like that, because politics been entrenched and been a gateway for me to meet a lot of people that are like heavy hitter figures right now, to think about where it started from before in campaigning and still working in the space when it comes to policy and how things connect, and just made a large announcement. But we're going to talk a lot of that and even more. Welcome back, Mr. Brandon Jessup. How are you?
Man, what's happening, Wayne? Man, you all right?
All is well. All is well.
It's Mr. Frazier now, man. It's Mr.
Hilarious.
Frazier now,
Hilarious. Hilarious. So with this being said, before we even jump into like the announcement of everything right now, politically, a lot of people have really, let's go to a lot of people that have disengaged right now. People very upset with systems politically that usually, to me, and these are a lot of our discussions we've always had, people that have more bought into the system, meaning that they were closer to contracts or having jobs connected to the government and just living over here most of my life. I've always said, look, the people I know have disengaged a long time ago. I'm around where I live in my neighborhood. That group of voters that haven't voted, they voted for Barack Obama, they voted for Jesse Jackson, and they voted for Coleman Young. Other than that, they haven't even thought about walking into any polling location. And we've had spirited discussions over the years.
A lot of spirit.
Now, there still is such a class that have been committed to these systems that will look at so many things and caucusing and reaching out. And a lot of them are a lot more disengaged from this past federal election and just disengaged, angry, checked out on so many levels. I have a lot of my concepts of this, but let me get your take about politically what has so many people just frustrated about politics right now.
I say that the Republicans last year ran the greatest voter suppression campaign you've ever seen. When you make almost 20 million people stay home from the last election, right? Like, so remember, Trump got less votes this year than he did in 2020.
Yeah.
And so you got less people that turned out, and now so many people are checked out. So we had this conversation a lot, right?
Yeah.
And there was some study that we saw last year that I was doing. I would do this work nationally. The targeting, the identification, like how folks feel about stuff, like where they sit in certain issues, all of that kind of stuff, particularly with the African American and Black community specifically. And we know that over 70% of African Americans don't feel like they have a political home. All right.
And when you say political home, what do you mean?
Meaning that like they got a place where they feel that their agency is felt and they can feel their power politically. Right. So you can affiliate with a party, but most of that affiliation means that like that party should be giving you something, right?
Yeah. And this is really, you're going on a discussion that I've heightened over the years. So we've been having this discussion decade plus.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
And so now when you have like the Democratic campaign for president, they spent over $1 billion. And the conversations is like, all right, well, y'all ain't reach out to enough to Black men enough. And like, well, hold on, wait. So, you know me, we talked with, matter of fact, last time we was talking, I think it was around Hill Harper was announcing they activity in the state and how they want to run for state Senate. And so for U.S. Senate. And so in the conversation there was like, hey, there's some big hurdles you got to get over with the Black community. That's going to be more than just like retail politics. You got to get back into the trenches.
Yeah.
If you're expecting to do this like a movement, and everybody just think movement just come because like you got the right skin color. No, movement don't come that way. Like you got to really be around here in the community, talking to people, having conversations like me and you both know.
And some of this, even as I saw, I don't. It's so tough because that last presidential campaign, so much is just changing globally that impacts America that I've heightened. And when it comes to our community, especially with black folks, a lot of the campaign pitch really is usually not even the lesser of two evils that I've been waving that banner for years saying, but it's more so vote for this because you don't want that. And I just don't necessarily find an incentive being the alternative choice.
Yeah.
And that is just so tough of a motivator.
Well, it's a tool of white supremacy that there's either or, right? Like you can only take left or right. Like I can't find another map pathway in the middle. Nothing. There's no blend of the two. You know, so you can work out, right? And so I think like that's where we are. And I think a lot of people, especially our community, they're like, man, how y'all gonna keep playing these games? And so there's agency that we have in the caucus, right? I think democracy still allows you to convene amongst your community, and we still need to be unapologetically black. And that don't mean I have to show up with the right melanin in the skin tone. I mean, there's cultural grounding that you have in that space. You understand what I'm saying? Like right now, like so many men and women last year were saying, look at just like nothing's changed for me. Like, right, I'm still working as hard as I was before.
Yeah.
Okay, you know, so
and with this last year, as you say, you do this work nationally. What were you doing last year for the people to know?
Yeah. So I'm I work for State Voices, a national nonprofit, a network of over 1,500 nonprofit organizations steeped in just making sure Black folks, Latino folks, Indigenous, Asian women, everybody who normally has been disenfranchised in democracy get some agency in the space.
And you were going in places across the nation and seeing some of those things that we've been uplifting. And we actually had an opportunity. I don't even remember, was that in September or August? But we both were on a panel.
Yeah, September.
In September. It was a panel for the fellowship. Shout out to Des. And it was myself, you, and John Conyers III, and we were talking politics. And it was a great discussion, especially with Black men, fellowship, about what to look for and what could be gathered. And some of those same discussions were upraised. And this is really the point that I've been bringing up for forever. And it's been you and Kofi, shout out to Kofi, and many others that work in that space of policy and understanding that, really my thought process is I want to see something change for the hood. And then the more you understand in politics, that's where the data comes. That's where the think tanks come. That's where policy is written, usually responding to things where it may take problem exists 2005. Then it ends up getting to a think tank, then it ends up into legislation, then it may possibly end up in vote, and that comes about in 2013.
It could be right. Like you could take action at every level,
and that's also where the discussion of chicken and egg comes, because it's back to the squeaky wheel gets oiled. So if to advocate for a group of people that are disengaged, does that make sense when you have to really run again probably every 2 years? You're running again every 2 years. So it's like if you're advocating for a group of people where this definitely heightens quality of life for a community, but this group of people are not the group of people that are your constituents in the sense of they're not your voting constituents, though you still represent them, it can become difficult. So these have been the types of discussions we've been having, and I'm unpacking this to kind of get back to the root of the response and the action and knowing how to respond in action. And I believe this election left one of the largest groups, especially of a Democratic base, feeling like what another group in the Democratic base have felt like. So Black women have been, I believe, the most staunch, rugged, 10 toes down supporters of the Democratic Party that felt so
92%,
so left out of what just happened. Because to the point where, even with my own sisters, like they don't even really like to bring up what just happened in the past election. And I'm like, this has been a discussion happening in the barbershop with black men probably since Barack Obama's first election, Jesse Jackson's election back in 88, so it's just an interesting dynamic. And I don't want to stay there to segment gender as much as I just want to talk about how do we take this energy and focus and move those agendas faster, like what you were just saying.
I think so what I got from November was that whiteness really does paint and run American politics and closeness to whiteness. Mm-hmm. And so while many black men will say like, hey, like, my sisters, this, that, and the third, rah, 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 like there was like I said, the suppression of the last 4 years. See, that man decided on November 8th, 2020, right, the day after the election, that he was going to start a re-election campaign.
Yeah.
And did not let his foot up off the gas. And being inaugurated just this past Tuesday, where it signed like about 68 executive orders.
Yeah.
And so
two
things
super
happen,
aggressive.
Right, two things happen. One is the things that the Republican Party really raised the identity politics within the Democratic Party, and the Democratic Party didn't stand on their own ID. If you didn't hear Kamala Harris speak about her gender a lot, but not her race at all.
I mean, that was almost something she shied away from, just knowing the breakdown.
And well, I mean, just knowing the breakdown, but so in coalition strategy, right? Democrats run in coalition. Mm-hmm. The thing is about being able to pull the broader community about the things that you need for the other 90% of the country, right? It's like, so if you look at the map, the way the map played out in the way the people in those red areas, what they said they wanted, right? And then everybody talk about, buyer's remorse. You get what you deserve. That's not what this is about, because we all gonna feel the same pain. We all gonna feel pain.
Yeah.
So now it's not about, like, you think you won in and now, look at what you really got. Look at this sour surprise. Nah, we all gonna fail. So now I think there's a real conversation that we shouldn't step away from our identities. And that's where, like, the Democratic Black Caucus is important. That's why I'm running for chair.
And I wanted to even uplift the fact that, and I've had the discussion with the current chair in reference to just even the elections that are happening between these national elections and the relationship between the Democratic Party and the run for county clerk, the run for state representative, the run for the board of police commissioners, because it seems like you pop up every 4 years with a celebrity and something cool, but to kind of build those coalitions at the times when it's the 4 years versus the work that's really being done that really impacts us most is happening every year.
Me and you both guard. We know that we had to spend last fall prepping that ground for this upcoming spring. It's habit. And so, and my father told me about, like, a lot of y'all city boys don't understand about how you get the things you get. The Democratic Party has not planted no seeds in our community in 20 years. Right now, I'm looking at a baby boomer holding power right now. There was no transition to Generation X. And now I'm a millennial, literally, for the next generation, assuming power because it's time. If we continue to move forward with that 90-day, it's about to be the election calendar, come jump up and jump rope. People tired of jumping.
And I was going to say, but you talk about that, it's a lot of baby boomers across the board, period, in leadership positions.
That's what they used to. They used to that election calendar, right? Mm-hmm. With the onslaught of information that you get from Elon Musk, right? And the corporate media machine that is very, very geared towards oligarchies. Even our media machine is an oligarchy right now. So I got to talk to independent media to even have a conversation about caucusing, right? So in between these elections, this is where your caucus is important. We got a Detroit City Council coming up, right? In a city that's 83% black, This is where your Black caucuses at the local level come into play, holding those forums, calling those candidates in, giving the community time to see who is in play. Then you can build activity and interest around what's going on instead of waiting on Devin Skillian, and shout out to Devin. But by the time he do that on Sunday, it's October what?
I love that you uplifted that. And here with Detroit is Different, it's going to be a lot more as we have the public comment vehicle and just the open forum to have these discussions about politics because it impacts community. And Detroit is Different so much about community. And as you talk about city council, police commission. And what happened last election with police commission, to me, is also one of those things that just blows most people's minds when you unpack, that was a COVID election. So it's already tough to get things out. There were seats on the police commission that didn't even have people running. So there was the executive body, meaning the mayor of Detroit, already appoints a certain amount of commissioners. So it was even more commissioners that the mayor got the chance to appoint, which creates such a balance of how things are executed.
Say it again.
Especially when we look at so many lawsuits that come to the city of Detroit through actions of police officers.
Thank you.
And also the reality of the capacity of what officers can do. So definitely shout out to Alea and Zoe and the work of Force Detroit moving forward. The Detroit Shot Stopper program, which I was definitely against in the beginning. I thought it was going to be like some vigilante justice, but it actually curved so many of the acts of violent acts. But this is those relationships in house, because now without any ARPA funding and just what happened in the State House, it looks like the funding to move forward those initiatives will not be as preventative measures in community, which disconnects to why politics.
But guess what? I bet you the Shot Spider program continues because it collects valuable data that you can sell in the market.
Well, the Shot Stop.
So Shot Stop, right? But you're recording audio all day long. You're listening all day long.
Well,
and so think about, like, we're in a generation right now where you're watching two of the richest people in the world literally make money off of zero with 100% profit from their social media platform.
Yeah.
Right. And so, like, the collection and mining of data is probably one of the biggest injustices happening right now to Black people in America. When you think about, like we talk about, we're going to boycott X, Y, and Z. The best way to boycott is to unplug, because now they don't know what to sell to you. If again, like, if I give you something for free and you can go turn around and sell it for $1, that's 100% profit.
Yeah. We're
wondering how Mark Zuckerberg became a multi-billionaire. He wasn't in the tens of billions now, whatever. They racing towards $1 trillion.
Yeah.
We giving it to him for free.
Yeah.
And so I love the current set of generation of leadership that we have in our community. It's too few of them. We've got to get to scale. And so, so the Democratic Party ain't interested overall in you recruiting precinct delegates for your community. No, they aren't. They just want to make sure that you got the capacity to move your community as much as you want within that space. They just built the space. So it's up to us to fill it up. Otherwise, someone else is going to take it up.
So now let's go a little bit back in time to a snapshot of a moment.
Yeah.
We have a program even called the George Floyd moment. It was a moment where the world was paying attention during COVID to crises within the Black community through the vehicle of the tragedy of the murder of George Floyd. Heightened more shifts that, shout out Kirk Mays, as he said, a lot was just given to us, quote unquote, like, okay, this could help. I mean, I don't know if you all got the phone call from white homies like, I apologize. And it's like, what you calling me for, Jeff? You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? But it was a moment in time.
I live in Macomb, man. Ain't nobody called me yet. They was like, whatever.
Hey, there you go. There we go. Yeah, that's
You
definitely
got some good white friends.
That is MAGA country, baby. Exactly. Yep.
They gave me a head nod. I was like,
yeah, exactly. There you go. It's like they, but that moment in time was some attention in our community, more than usual. And now I look at its tragedies across America and the realities in communities like mine and many Black communities. You travel the nation. I mean, we can look at what's happening in Altadena, LA. That is the Black community of where a lot of these fires happen, where that city is
decimated. That whole
wiped out.
Decimated, yeah.
So, and then when we think of the pervasive poverty in communities like mine, where $12,000 a year is just like a reality for a lot of folks, it's so easy to exploit a person's perspective on so many things just because they're in survival mode.
The scarcity of resources, all of that. Yeah.
How, if given these opportunities that you're even speaking of uplifting, are we in a preparation standpoint where we can see something where, as opposed to a lot of concepts being given, we have what to ask for?
So let me take 2 steps back from George Floyd, right? There was a attitude and a spirit of resistance that had come from the 45th presidency election. And that spirit of resistance, we're trying to find that now. I think that's what's the difference between now and 8 years ago.
Yeah.
And so, like, when you build that muscle, right, of resistance, I'm working out, I'm protesting, I'm doing these things, I'm just raising the issues of the Black community, and you have a pandemic, everybody got to stop and listen for a minute, and then you get like a media platform like TikTok that can allow things that are wrong to organically, or just things to kind of like organically move without the algorithm. See, so that's what happened this last Sunday, Sunday before last, with this whole TikTok thing and the whole Trump like win thing. This is about a conversation about algorithms and the content we see and what we consume and how fast we can consume it. And so if TikTok is okay with adopting the US algorithm, which really like feeds you more of the things that are led by hashtags, as opposed to like, hey, where do you want to go today? Right? Like, what's your move today? And kind of like walking with you organically, you're gonna have a problem. And so, like, I don't know if that environment can be recreated again. People right now are feeling a lot of pain. There's a lot of anxiety, but and people are looking for a space to take action. What happened again in 2016? There were spaces where people could take action. Right now, like, unfortunately, I think a lot of people are very tired. They are depressed, and when you deal with a depressed democracy, man, that's dangerous. And so you can get somebody who can throw a Sieg Heil up, and people be like, "Oh man, ain't nobody gonna do nothing about it." And then those institutions that we stand on to at least raise a flag about it, they say, "Oh, well, it was a weird gesture." Ain't that what the ADL called it? Let me do it tomorrow.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So like, this is we've got to. That's why, again, like, that's why I'm running, because we got to get back to training.
So what are you running for?
I'm running for chair of the Michigan Democratic Black Caucus.
Okay, and in that position, what do you see would happen under your administration?
I think, for one, we return to being organically driven and driven from the ground up. So that's like recruiting precinct delegates again. Detroit should have at least 1,200 precinct delegates.
What's a precinct delegate?
So in our communities, right, we got districts, right? We got the 7 districts, right?
The districts for city of Detroit, run for council. So we have those 7 council districts.
That's right. So when you go vote, right, you see your district and you got your precinct. So there's 400 some odd plus precincts in the city of Detroit. And by law, right, the minimum a city can have, like, this population is 3. So you got 400 some odd plus precincts times 3. That's how many Democratic precinct delegates you can have. You can also have 3 Republican, at least minimum 3 Republican, right? So that's 6 folks that could represent any precinct. And precincts can be as large as 3,000 people. So now when you think about these things grow to scale, so I think in some precincts you can have up to 16 delegates, right? 8 apiece, right? And so these are the people that carry the water, right, about like issues. So those are folks you need to have at the city council meeting. Those are great spaces for young people, seniors, people who got time. And right now, and as we figure out like how all this work from home stuff goes, like, yeah, like it's a great opportunity to be a precinct delegate because now you can take the information that these city councils talking about. You can see how these changes and these executive orders are impacting people because we need those ears on the ground, and you need to educate yourself, right? Like we got to get back to that space. So that's number one. Precinct delegates, recruiting them back across the state. Right now, there are 8 caucuses. So the way the Democratic Party is organized is at the county level, right? So you got a statewide party. You got counties, county caucuses. And so with the state Black Caucus, with the Michigan Democratic Black Caucus, it's the same thing. There are 43 communities where African Americans are 80% of the minority population. And they have over like 500 people. 43 counties in Michigan, right? So right now we only got 8 caucuses. It's a problem with that, right? Like, so we've always been kind of operating in this space of like where the party let us organize. And I know that we don't have to operate like that anymore. So.
And I definitely want to even uplift if you talked about Macomb, because I see so many brothers and sisters moving into Macomb and it's changing. At the policy conference, I missed Hackle's presentation.
Yeah.
Executive Hackle, but
shout out to Rhonda and folks over in Macomb County February 8th. We're doing a Black History program. I think it's February 8th. I want to get you the flyer for that. So they're doing the state of Black Macomb for the first time ever. And they're talking about like the housing situations going on in Macomb County. And they're making a demand for more housing from the county, right? And so like these are the things that Mark Hackle will go to Mackinac and like have in his back pocket and will talk about construction, but won't say where that construction is demanded. It's demanded in Roseville. It's demanded in South Warren, where you got Black folks moving on the other side of 8 Mile. Right. And so these are the things that folks talking about. And we talk about like these construction contracts, right? 696, they about to do all this work from 696, from the lodge all the way to 75 going east. Okay. So Oakland County Democratic Black Caucus. Another part under the caucuses, you can have councils, right? So the purpose of the council is to inform folks on issues. So yes, as chair, I'll have a small business council. I want to pull together all these Black chambers of commerce and start to feed into one space because, hey, we got Lansing's ear. Right now, you got the governor's ear for at least another 3 years. So if there are things that we can do to build that resistance against what may be happening federally or against oligarchies and just capitalism, it can start at the state level with the executive branch of government. The second thing is like, yes, we got elections coming up this year, right? Not just Detroit, you got Southfield, Sterling Heights. We talk about moving north. All the folks who want to move up 75. You got Flint, they got elections. Pontiac got an election, right? All these Black communities got elections this year. So we can't wait until next October to organize. These folks got to get in place now. So again, that's why the precinct delegates are important, to have the conversations about the upcoming elections. Get these folks appointed at the county clerk office. This is an appointment process. That's what your Black Caucus can do. And regardless of your party affiliation, the Michigan Democratic Black Caucus has always produced for Black folks statewide. When the caucus started up in 2011, it came off of the heels of the effort that we started over in Highland Park. The movement to repeal Michigan's emergency manager law. Off of that framework, we built and revived the Michigan Democratic Black Caucus. So,
well, shout out,
it's homecoming.
Definitely shout out Reverend Bullock and a lot of those efforts at that time. Good homie. And then that was Mayor Wyndham's efforts moving from there. I do want to uplift this too, because there's a lot of people that just look at the Democratic Party, period. Like, it's not done enough for Black folks. That's not a space we need to be. what's the response in organizing there versus saying we need to just start our own party altogether?
I say this. So like I hear a lot of brothers, and I'm down with a lot of folks in the Working Families Party. You know, I'm saying, shout out to Reese Snyder, shout out to Maurice Mitchell. You know what I'm saying, all them folk. And I think like ideally we align on a lot of things. We do. And so again, like the Michigan Democratic Black Caucus is a vehicle. It's a vehicle in a space that has a lot of political power within Michigan, and we need to be in this space for us to be respected as a community in the state. So I don't believe that the Democratic Party should be as center right as it is. I believe that the party right now, ideologically and politically, is center right, and especially when you think about just black ownership and black autonomy in America and black liberation, they are totally center of the right when it comes to black liberation. This whole DEI conversation is anti-reparation. And the Democratic Party really hasn't done much in this state to move towards just to have a conversation about reparations. That's something else we're raising out of this caucus under my leadership.
Now, with that being said, the current leader would say, "Hey, I move forward with this initiative to get the reparations the reparations bill in the city of Detroit passed, which led to the reparations task force." So, right there, working within it, Keith Williams is going to say that reparations, when you think of Detroit, it is here.
See, this is the thing. See, this is where we got to be smart about white superiority and all of that. See, I'm not making you choose either or. That work needs to continue. It needs to be buttressed with other communities across the state, and their capacity needs to be raised. Detroit don't feed Flint. Detroit don't feed Benton Harbor. No more. We ain't even thinking about commerce amongst communities. So it's great that you have a shining example of how to create a task force and how to organize politically a structure to get some agency started in the city of Detroit. It should be easy in a city that's 88% black to get a task force started to talk about reparations. Now, when we talk about agenda and what the goals are and how long that task force is going to be operating, I have issues there, but I'm not going to beat that brother's work down. And unfortunately, some people again succumb to white supremacy when they have a conversation about my track record and what's been done in the community by other folks. There is no either or. We're all contributing to the future of our community. The fact is how much gas you got left in your tank. And so we're talking about capacity and scale. Everything that we do in our work is about going to scale. So if we continue to act like what we do, working with these small consultant classes and black elites, you're not going to win. You and I both know we're not going to win like that. Reparations got a restorative justice component. We just put a white man in the White House with 38 felonies, but in this state, you still got to declare whether or not you're a returning citizen. So it's a lot of stuff that's easy and it sound easy, but no, I'm not saying it's easy. But this is low hanging fruit that people can see common sense. We should be able to move these types of things. And so when we look at how black this city is and how black this state is, we talk about the governor and her glasses all the time and how strong black culture is. I believe in the agency of our culture. And I'm not the one to say that, hey, y'all young folks don't get it, because I see them move all the time. Mm-hmm. So I know what energy we got as millennials and the alpha generation. Right? We ready to bet it. We ready. So my hand that I extended out to current leadership was like, there's space for all of us to grow and to do this work. I want to continue the reparations work being done in Detroit. I want to enhance it. I was told, we'll talk about it. Now we playing politics.
I would definitely say a couple different things, because we've had so many discussions about reparations in the task force, even when I interviewed Mr. Williams, which is actually, that was one of my more fun interviews from last year. And we spoke on it, and I've just in learning more of political structures and systems, it's a couple different things about it that the one key dynamic, and I urge people to go watch the Adet Old Not a Handout video essay that I did about the history of reparations through the lens of reparations Ray Jenkins, Joanne Watson, and also John Conyers Jr. And that piece, and I'm going to do some screenings actually in February of that. So come on out to one of the screenings if you available for the general public. Some are in schools, but we're going to do one at Source Booksellers February 13th. And it looks like WC3 to close out the month, February 28th. And some of it's like people don't even want to have to quote unquote talk about what the lens is. The task force itself, I think, is one space. I do think that it should be a commission. That takes, as I've learned more so, because that was as I'm learning more about city structures. So the difference between a task force and a commission is a task force is under the body of city council, which is more of a legislative branch. So it can become an idea like yes. Whereas if it's a commission under the executive body, it can take executive actions. Now, to do that, it definitely changes the way that our city becomes charter, which has a relationship with the state of Michigan. So it's like you understand more about the political structure as you start asking these questions, as I found out. So it definitely takes those relationships throughout the state to move forward a commission. Now, would a reparations commission possibly take 6-7 years? Possibly. But I think it could move faster. But it's back to the awareness, and it definitely is in the willingness of the right leadership throughout the state house. But it does move forward actions. And this is what I've always uplifted, that I think is the pool of money that connects to it. It's the non-resident taxes that were taken back, meaning the income taxes that non-residents that work in the city of Detroit pay that were taken back when Mayor Archer took office in the agreement for a Cobo Hall deal to be shared. Huntington Place now, but I still call it Cobo Hall no matter what. But that non-resident tax, I think, is the key that becomes the money that becomes the pool, because the last thing people say is, I don't want to pay into my own reparations, quote unquote. And it's exploring things like this. But all of this definitely goes between a city's relationship with the state, which institutions like the Democratic Caucus play a key role in moving forward agendas like this, because it takes awareness where you're going to need the state to support efforts like this moving forward, because it can look a whole lot like Tommy Walker's theme in Lansing often, hence Detroit versus everybody.
And when you talk about like reparations ain't just for black folks in the city of Detroit, this is a movement of the diaspora.
Yes.
So like, it's a lot to manage, and like there's no cape to put on, right? Ain't gonna be the big savior of reparations. Oh, look at this dude. It ain't gonna be that. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I know that there's a lot of conversation that has started. I'm encouraged by the energy, right, in the task force, right? And again, like, this is about bringing resources. So then, like, not only does the task force have to operate off of what city council gives it, but then you got grassroots organizing effort, right? Like, that's what the people across the country are interested in this. So like, how do you talk about fundraising for the caucus to where you're not always dependent on whatever the Democratic Party gives you, right? Like, so if I'm depending on 90 days funding to run me for 2 years of operations, how soon are you going to be out of business? 120 days. And so that's why the community keeps saying, like, well, how come you disappear in January? You ain't going to be back. I know you're not going to be back. The reparations task force is Keith's work. That's not the Democratic Black Caucus's work. And so now to you as an organizer, it's about us bringing those resources to where, like, how can I buttress and give that fortitude to that reparations task force, so people in Flint can see, like, all right, they got a working model. I want to go take it up here to my city council.
And I want to close out with this on a kind of a somber note, but really, I think more of a commemorance.
Yeah.
And And I definitely was not alive during his political tenure, but the respect I have for the late Jimmy Carter that just passed is less really his role as a president, but when he no longer was president, moving forward with so many efforts that he still continued to commit to because of the relationships he had. And, you know, Habitat for Humanity, like just so much of the work, still doing the work. You know, Dave Chappelle even spoke of some of it in his Saturday Night Live monologue. I really want you, I'm asking you, and this is really just always been on my mind. So many people that run and don't win or were engaged and retire. And I mean, they're kind of around, but what would be your plea to kind of involve more? And I'm not necessarily saying that people aren't doing anything, but to connect with a lot of the people that have some of these relationships, that have been in these spaces, that may still feel a little bit like, man, I don't like how they doing it, but to keep them engaged, keep them in the space, keep them active, to bolster and keep them committed, where I don't expect anybody to do a Habitat for Humanity per se, but to still be present in the work in community beyond what we may or may not see.
Raising almost 100 data staffers in this network over the last 10 years or so. I mean, professionals doing this work year round. There are so many people that I can call on to lend counsel, because I always had an open door, right? And building relationships, being transparent with people is something that I think that we can, that's a value in leadership. That's, you know, that's something that I got from Jimmy Carter when you think about his values as a Christian and how it led to his humanity, right? And so my penchant for humanity is steeped in Blackness. And so therefore, I believe that when we talk about our seniors, right, those folks that have been here, like I gotta find space for my dad. My dad, 82, right, and he wants to continue to inform the next generations about, like, no, let me show you what racism look like, right? Like, it looked like him, like in this new AI world, everything's bushy-eyed and glossy-eyed and everything like that. So you can't realize hate when you see it in real form. And so there's space for that. Look, again, small business folks, like precinct delegates, they're not business owners. Mr. Barnes over there at Heritage Optical been talking about Senate Bill 317 for the longest. They can't get out of committee. This bill would allow state-based businesses to get the last bid on state contracts. So when you talk about buying eyeglasses, Mr. Barnes can negotiate on the same level as these national folks. But right now, he put in the bid, last 5 minutes of the bid before it's due, deadline due. Let's say big national company outbid him by 30%. He lose again. Now he gotta go outsource to them. But he can sell directly to all of Illinois, right, through their contracting system, because they allow, if you got business in the state, if you chartered in the state, you can go ahead and bid at the last 48 hours, 72 hours on the contract and sell to the entire state. These are the things that, like, encourage small business. I wouldn't have known that just knocking doors, right? And Mr. Barnes, again, Mr. Barnes, my daddy age. So we got to find spaces where we can listen. The chair has to be able to receive way more information than they give. And that's one thing that I want to build intentionally, right? So that's where you talk about the councils, the senior councils, the small business councils. And then as an organizer, working on my penchant and reaching out to people, bringing more people into the fold. There are a lot of folks who are currently in the Black Caucus that are operating in a county that's not where they live. Let me give you the resources to where you can organize a caucus in your community. So, like, yeah, I need a Black Caucus in Berrien County, right? I need a Black Caucus in Calhoun County, in Kalamazoo County. I need a functioning Black Caucus up there in Lake County, because that's where Idlewild is. It don't make sense for us to have all this affection, but we ain't got no political agency. So that's where we are. And I think just having that, being intentional and direct with folks about like being in that space, them folks to see where they can operate. And it ain't about agreeing all the time. But when we don't agree, when you're grounded in the purpose of a community and where we're trying to go, those disagreements easy to get over.
Respect. As always, thank you, sir. Best on this journey. And I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how this organizing and manifesting come together.
February 22nd, Detroit, Michigan, Detroit Marriott. Get there at 9 o'clock in the morning. That's what the caucus meeting is going to be, the Michigan Democratic Convention. All you got to do to be there is to be a member. Ain't no cost. It's open forum. If you're a Republican, you have to pay at the Republican convention. But for Democrats, again, commitment to democracy, commitment to that discourse. It's free. Just get your membership. I'll send you the link.
All right. Peace.
Detroit is Different is where you get information, artistry, history, music, and even comedy. Detroit is Different, a home for the culture of Detroit. Visit online at DetroitisDifferent.com today.